Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are diving deep into a conversation with someone who is really shaking up the fitness industry here in Australia. Joining me today, I have Tara Jarrett. Tara, welcome. You are the co-founder of App Pilates, which is a company that is not only growing fast, but really is fundamentally changing the way that people are accessing fitness and in particular reformer Pilates at the moment. So it's great to have you on the show. And I'm really excited to dive into how your business is really disrupting the space.
Thank you. And I'm actually looking forward to having a chat too. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I guess jumping into the business itself, your kind of core point of difference is really revolutionary. It is that 24/7 access to reformer Pilates, which typically is you've got peak periods, certain hours, capped classes, and everything is essentially available all the time, which is really changing flexibility and kind of like breaking out of that, traditional restrictive sort of peak hours that we're used to. So talk to us. Give us a little bit more information about App Pilates.
So App Pilates we're the only existing reformer Pilates, 24/7 reformer Pilates franchise. It's actually out there. So there are now other 24/7 independent models. And I'll explain sort of the difference as we go through, but we are the only only 24/7 franchise, both in Australia and as far as we've deep dived extensively looking internationally. We cannot find another franchise that exists. And the reason for that is that we're in control of and we own and have developed our own proprietary digital platform. So all the content is ours. So we developed that content over the last 4 years. We've got over 550 classes. We upload 20 a month. We're about to release an app that does all sorts of crazy things, which I can talk about later. But the other thing that makes us, different to other existing business is we offer a full package, full service operations and business package to anyone that opens a studio. So it's not just about here's your content. It's everything about, well, opening your business is one thing, but how do I maintain members in 2 years' time? How do I reduce churn? How do I keep community happening? How do I make sure that franchise have work-life balance? So all of those things that I think a lot of people don't think about when they initially go, I'm going to open a Pilates studio, they don't think 18 months down the track. So we offer that full service package, and we can do that because we own everything that we do. And how it came about is exactly what you were saying. We literally reverse engineered all the issues that were existing in traditional reformer Pilates out there. And I was fortunate at the time. I actually had my own studio and we had a large 24/7 gym, and I had over nearly 1,000 members that I could actually interview and get statistics from. I said to them, what don't you like about group exercise? What don't you like about Pilates? What are the things that annoy you? And they always comes back to, I can't get in, wait lists, I can't get the instructor I want at the time, the instructor leaves. I can, there's only an intermediate class on Wednesday at 6:00 and I want a beginner's class. I've had people say that they used to wake up at 4 a.m. to try and get off a wait list to book into the Pilates class in the morning. Crazy stuff. And then from an owner, if a studio owner point of view, finding staff, finding really well-equipped, qualified specialist instructors rather than just who happened to be available at the time that you needed someone, especially in regional Victoria or regional Australia. That's where our superpower started to come to the forefront. So yeah, to answer who we are, we're a 24/7 reformer Pilates franchise. We offer digital content. So our classes are actually delivered via a platform. So we have a screen that moves around the reformer, but we are a staffed model, and that is the part that messes with people. Most of our members, over 80 to 90% of our members actually come during staffed hours. So we're highly our members are highly serviced. And we always say we do that because we double down basically on the fact that they don't have to deliver the content. our staff deliver customer service.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I think it's I've done quite a lot of reformer Pilates classes in the past as well, and it is a real point of contention is there's only 12 spaces available at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. and to do the earlier class you have to leave work earlier, you have to navigate, and then it's always booked out, or you end up in a beginner's class when you want an intermediate class. And I think that flexibility that you guys are offering is really kind of, I guess, giving quite a little bit of power to the customer in a way where it can be quite flexible based on their schedule. Those kind of standard 9 to 5 schedules are changing consistently, like year on year. And it's really a business model that is adaptive, and it's like allowing people to, exercise when they want to exercise.
Exactly. And we're finding too, we're appealing to either the person that wants to be part of a group, wants to be part of a community, loves the fact that they can come and be part of that social group, or we also cater for the person that just wants to come in, do their thing. They don't want to necessarily be seen. They just want to do their workout, have a great workout, be able to choose the workout they want to do at the time that suits them and go. And we're finding we're catering to all of those avenues. And you're right, very few people are 9 to 5 anymore. And so our studios, depending on the location, our head office is in South Melbourne, for example, in Melbourne, and we actually find that studio is busy right up until probably 1 a.m. and then we'll go again about 4 a.m. So there's only a few hours in the morning, in that middle of the night where there's no one actually in the studio. Not a lot of people, but it just gives those people who are on shift work, who do, different hours to anyone else, that they can actually still access.
Yeah, and I think we'll dive into it in a little bit too, but I guess like the square footage and the return on investment per square footage for that franchisee is much higher and much more appealing, because you do have access to a product or a service essentially 24 hours a day.
That's a huge factor with the actual franchise model itself. So for, at the moment, traditional reformer studios need to have a large footprint because they've got to have, reformers are big.
Yes.
3 meters by a meter minimum. And you've got all your accessories. So there's, and you need at least 1 meter to 1.5 meters between them. So if you want to put 20 people in a class, you start doing the numbers, that is a huge footprint. And to find footprints like that is a huge rent. And that is a lot of car parking issues. And there is a lot of logistics that flow around that. And that is just to cater for 20 people at certain times of the day. So what we've done is we've actually spread those people out over the entirety of the day. So our footprints, our studios have between 5 and 10 reformers. And that's the biggest one we have is 10 reformers, and it has over 400 members, and caters to those 400 members without wait lists, without anyone getting upset about not being able to get in. So it's possible, and we also do that primarily with one staff member on shift at any time. So it's possible. It's all in the systems and the processes.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm really interested to dive into a little bit about like what kind of first sparked that like always on approach. Where did that 24/7 model come from?
But we did develop this business through 2020. So at the time, we owned a very large 24/7 gym. That was actually a multidisciplinary facility. So everything from a swim school to physios and Pilates, and we had my husband's background is strength and conditioning, so we had a high performance center plus our 24/7 gym. It was an amazing facility that got shut down for over 280 days. So it killed us. And we managed to navigate our way through. But prior to that, I'd already had my Pilates studio, which was part of the gym, and I was already seeing frustration from members, and I was getting frustrated with this. I had this beautiful space that remained vacant 80% of the day, because where we're in country Victoria, we could only have instructors at certain times a day in terms of instructor availability. So it's that empty throughout the day. After 6 p.m. in the evening, it was empty. And members were struggling to fit into the classes. We only had 8 reformers, so again had the same issue as every other studio, everyone trying to get into the certain classes at the one time and trying to please everyone with the types of classes, and I was literally turning myself inside out. So my son at the time was a amateur videographer, and much to his disgust at having to, film his mum, I asked him to actually start filming. I said, I've got all this IP. I want you to start filming me do classes. I don't know what I want to do with it yet, but I know there's something. And so I started the first iteration of App Pilates way back in probably around 2019, where we actually we had a screen on the wall and we ran classes outside of peak hours. So a lot of the things that people are starting to do now, we did way back there, and we worked out the bugs and, worked out why that wasn't such a great idea. It was okay, but again, it didn't satisfy the fact that people wanted to do different classes at different times. So we went through all the problems. So how do we have it so that people can do different classes at different times and not interfere with each other? How do we do it that people could do different classes at different times, not interfere with each other, but they didn't have to start at the same, exactly on the hour, every hour? So the model started to evolve. I've got to excuse my voice, sorry. And we came up with the equipment. So we developed screens that moved around the carriage. We have noise cancelling headphones. We developed our own actual reformers to change them slightly to suit our member and what they wanted. I call them a Rolls Royce. They're very plush and gorgeous. So the model started to evolve in 2020. I had downtime, so I thought, right, I'm going to really try and figure out a system here that works. This is a great idea. Then eventually, Allied Health were able to open up before gyms through COVID. So we decided to move our studio out of our gym. So even though our studio was inside our gym and we could open, technically no one was allowed in because you weren't allowed to walk through the doors of a gym at that stage. So even though the gym was closed, so we had to physically move the studio. And I actually contacted the police COVID hotline and said, I've got this idea. And they basically said, you found a loophole. So I started onboarding people via cameras through my phone. We developed a whole door entry system, and the model was developed, a scaled back model was developed from there. And I had 15 classes and we managed to get 90 members. And I thought, we've got something here. And so I started thinking, well, is this only working because it's, they're our members from our gym? So we basically did it in a town that was 30 minutes away. Same thing happened. We got over 100 members. And we repeated it 5 times and kept getting more and more members. And that's when we really thought, I think we've got something to offer here. So, and we franchised in November 22.
Wow. And since 2022, you guys have got 35 studios now. Is that right?
We've got 35 open, and we've got 40 that will be opened before December this year, and over 50 that will be sold. So we've grown to, we'll have 40 studios open by December this year, which is
phenomenal growth.
Yeah, it's crazy
insane.
growth.
Yeah.
It's controlled growth. We'd grown with it. We knew it would take off. We knew we had something, so we made sure we had all of our systems and operations and the way to support everyone. It wasn't just about opening and making sure, the next one was opening, So what we actually know is how to actually, I guess our strength is keeping members and making sure that those franchisees stay successful. We always say that it has to work for 3 people. It's got to work for the member, it's got to work for the studio owner, and it has to work for us. If it breaks down at any point, the whole system breaks down. So our studios that were opened back in 22 and 21 are as successful today as they were back then. So that's the exciting part.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's amazing. And it's interesting because as you were talking, obviously you said you kind of started regionally and then you kind of moved to the next regional town, which is something I really want to dig into, is your market launch strategy and how you guys sort of landed there and what the I guess the business strategy was behind that. Because I know a lot of businesses just go, when they're opening, okay, let's get in a major city, let's get as many eyeballs on this as possible. That's going to increase the chance, increase our brand awareness. More people are going to see it. There's more foot traffic. But you guys started in regional Vic.
Yes, deliberately.
Yeah.
There were reasons for it. One, it was easier for us because we were in regional Vic, and so it gave us a chance to, I guess, test the model, uh, while we were localised and close to it. But it was very deliberate in that we knew we had something that didn't exist. So when we first launched, there was no 24/7 reformer Pilates. So now there is. So there are independents out there using generic platforms, and it's not as uncommon now as it was back then. So we knew we had a window. We had a window where we had to perfect it before we actually wanted to, I guess, expose it to the rest of the world. And we wanted to give ourselves enough time to get our platform to the point where it really was a powerhouse. And so we thought, let's build this quietly. And so we started regional Victoria. Then we went into regional Queensland. We've got over 18 studios in Queensland. And we're deliberately doing that in New Zealand and also the US. So we're not going to go into the US market, into New York and LA, or go into Ann Arbor, or we'll go into, some of the big regional college towns where, again, we can prove our model without making too much noise. We've been in the industry for over 30 years, and we know what happens in the industry, as in most industries. If someone comes up with a good idea, they'll just go, I like that. I'll take that and call it something else. And so the key to having a successful business is be different, offer something different. We knew we had something different. We just had to get far enough ahead of everyone and get our systems really nailed down before people started to go, wow, who are these people? And now, sort of 40 studios deep, people are really starting to wonder, how did these guys get to here without us hearing about it? But it was deliberate. So now our footprint in Melbourne, in the CBD of Melbourne, we're in sort of Paran, South Melbourne, Brighton, Moorabbin. We're in CBD Brisbane, Gold Coast, launching in Subiaco in West Australia, in Perth. So we're starting to sort of sneak into the major cities as well now.
Yeah. At what point do you feel like you guys were like, okay, this has worked in, 3 regional towns in Victoria. We know we know what the next steps look like.
We're actually really lucky because of our network in the industry. We've got a lot of contacts in the fitness world, also the franchising fitness world. So we rang some really close friends of ours who were founders of other big industry franchises and said, we've got this idea. What do you think? And they're like, I can't, their mind was blown. They go, I can't believe no one's done this. And I know. So they gave us that, I guess, that initial framework in terms of, do this when you get to 100 members. We want you to, go again and do this. Remember, again, we're doing this off the back of COVID when our gym's been closed for 280 days. We're doing it on the smell of an oily rag. So we're funding it ourselves. So we're hurting at this stage, but we opened 6 on our own. And then once they were all up and running and quite successful, we then were introduced to franchise lawyers that were just absolutely fantastic. They then helped us with the next stages, and naivety is a good thing. I think, had I looked back now and said if it was going to be as much work as it was, I don't know whether we would have gone down the road, but I'm so grateful that we did. It took us 12 months to franchise the model, to, I guess, find the right corporate structure and to do it properly before we actually launched in November 22 as a franchise. So having those industry contacts really helped us because we would have been blind for a lot of it. And I think they really did shorten the process for us. So one of the things that I've started doing now is exactly that myself, mentoring young franchisors, who have got ideas, because someone did that for us. And I think to have someone in your corner who can actually help you with the next steps to help you avoiding making unnecessary mistakes, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that you're using your knowledge to sort of pay it forward and help others, businesses, do their thing too.
There's so many things that we still did wrong. Still did so, and you learn from that. I always say they're not mistakes, they're just expensive learnings, and, again, you just know, okay, well, that didn't work, or we probably didn't need to spend as much money on doing that. So, but you just get more efficient all the way through. Our processes never stop. We are learning all the time. One of the things that we've embraced heavily is technology, and we surround ourselves with it and use it really, really effectively. And that's something I cannot emphasize more in today's day and age. Be different and embrace much tech and as many things to help your members as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Was there any part of you throughout the initial kind of 6 studios that thought, maybe is this just a COVID boom?
Um, yeah, at the very beginning. I think at the very beginning, we did 3 very close together. So we did 3, within 12 months. And the first one I thought, maybe this is a fluke. Everyone's just a bit excited off the back of COVID. They're quite acceptable of the digital platform. They're quite accepting of the fact that, they've got a screen, because we've all been used to doing screens and things when, we've been in lockdown. But we actually found the momentum grew, and we got stronger. So when we first launched, we were so excited if we opened with, close to 100 members, and that, which is phenomenal. To do that is phenomenal. We had a studio launch last week with 376 members, and so that's 376 people that actually bought a membership to nothing. They bought a membership to a studio that didn't exist yet. So they have bought in on mind you, they're over 400 now, and those members are loving it, so it's all good. But it's just gaining momentum, and when we actually found that each one got a little bit better, each membership grew a little bit, our learning grew a little bit more, that's when I thought, yeah, this isn't just a COVID thing. And I did remember, as we were in lockdown, I remember saying to my husband, his background is strength and conditioning and elite athlete conditioning, and I said to him, it's not going to be the same from here. The industry is not going to go back. And I think the mistake a lot of people made in the fitness industry is they presumed that the industry would just go, okay, we're back now, and it wasn't ever going to go back. So it was always going to be some form of, I guess, change or hybrid change that was going to happen with COVID. So we've embraced that as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, even just what you just said in terms of the studio that's just opened with, almost 400 members, there wasn't a physical studio there. Like, there's obviously some really strong brand reputation associated with App Pilates now, to the point that people are signing up to something before they can physically touch it, which is phenomenal. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. So look, our branding and our marketing is so important to us. And, for those that haven't, jump onto our Instagram, which is Pilates 247, and have a look at the studios and what they look like. And they're very recognizable now. And so people are starting to see them and hear about them. And I guess once they actually understand that we're not a digitally focused, like just an empty studio without community, without staff, without that, client interaction, they start to really get excited, because they start to realize, I can have the best of both worlds. I can actually have that community. I can have my interaction with my instructor, but I can choose from over 500 classes and do it whenever I want. People are waiting for the catch, and there isn't one. So, which is, fantastic.
Yeah. And I kind of want to really dive into that too, and that tech side of it, because, a lot of businesses really are heavily reliant on human capital and having staff, and like high numbers of staff for their core service delivery. And then in order to scale, you need to scale your staffing needs as well. But you guys really have embraced technology, which, going back to like a leaner business operating model. But on top of that, you really are enhancing the client experience as well. It's not just about cutting back numbers and cutting costs and cutting staff that does that, but it actually is offering something more for people and for your members, So, I mean, what were some of those like key drivers that led you to, like you said, really adopt and prioritize tech from the beginning?
So a lot of people think that if you embrace tech, then you're sacrificing customer service. And we thought, no, you're looking at it from the wrong end. It's the complete opposite to that. So we've used tech to free our staff up to enhance customer service. So we don't have to, our instructors are qualified on the floor, but they don't have to teach. So they're not there to deliver the classes. What they are there to do is enhance the actual customer experience. So they're there for everything the actual member could need from the moment they walk into the door to helping them with technique, helping them with everything about adjusting their reformer, putting their feeding straps, finding their equipment, answering their questions, helping them organise a class for the next, week. We've got recovery services as well, helping them, utilise those aspects. But we do a lot of community events where we actually do some face-to-face classes, but more as a community style event. We might do Pilates on the pier, we might do Pilates in the park, we might have a beach Pilates session. And that's the part where our members really love getting together and doing something like those events. We're big on events. But each of our members has that direct contact. So our studios, as I said, are either 5 to 10. That's as many people as you'll ever have in there. I've taught face-to-face classes where there's been 20 reformers now, and you could have anyone from a beginner through to a pregnant participant through to my mum who's in that class. And so to try and offer all 20 of those people quality service and one-on-one doesn't exist. And the person that's going to get the most attention is the one who is the most broken and is the most in need. And so if you're capable, you're going to get ignored. What we do is, again, we let the platform do the teaching. We're there to interact, engage, all of those things. And to do, 1-on-5 and 1-on-10 gives you far more opportunity. And the other thing too is our members don't have to turn up. If you're booked in for 9 o'clock, you don't have to turn up at 9 o'clock. How it works is, Zara, you would have booked a reformer carriage for an hour. So you've rented a carriage basically for an hour. You can turn up at 9, you can turn up at 20 to 10 if you want to. So we've got 557 classes on our platform as of today. They range from 2 minutes in duration to 57 minutes. So you can filter down through our filtering system. Okay, well, I've got 40 minutes available. I really love Maddie, who's one of our instructors. I want to do a jump board class, high intensity. I'd love to do some weight training in there as well. You put all those filters in and it'll give you a list of, say, 15 classes to choose from. So it's very user-friendly, and that's how we use our tech. So we use our tech to make the experience more personal. Our platform, you will come in and you'll have your own login to the platform. And so it has all your classes that you've done, your recent classes, your favorites. We've got your profile, and we'll actually think of Netflix. Think of like the Netflix menu, and it'll say recommendations for you or based on your previous class history. We actually, the system has the ability to actually design a unique pathway for you, a unique exercise pathway, and you can update that information. So if you're having a baby, give us that information and it'll recommend for where you are in your pregnancy, these are the classes for you. And so it actually has all of those recommendations for you. And because we're not reliant on using the instructors that happen to be in our area and are available, and I've managed to find 2 that are qualified, we actually source them from all around Australia, and we've now flown them in from New Zealand, elsewhere, where we have specialist maternal health physios who are Pilates instructors delivering all our pregnancy. We have strength and conditioning coaches who are Pilates instructors. We have dancers who are Pilates instructors. So they all have their niche area, and that way we can actually offer really specialist classes to members. So there's no other platform that can do that. And that's what's exciting. The platform's what's exciting, as well as the overall systems and operations.
Yeah, I mean, the model is so customer-centric, and I can imagine there would be a lot of, initially, people might be hesitant, or they might have those concerns of like, oh, well, there's no one in there who's, it's my first time, or it's only my 3rd session, or like you said, oh, I'm 6 months pregnant, I don't know how to navigate this. it really is like almost as customer-centric, personalised and tailored as it can be, which is phenomenal, because that's, when we talk about utilising tech, and whether it be conversations in AI or tech or whatever it might be, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of like concern around it taking over, the human element. But it's actually, in your instance, it's being really utilised in a way that is delivering content in a higher calibre.
Yeah, trying to actually enhance the human element. The other thing too, that every single member that comes on into the studio, before they can actually join, need to do an onboarding. So every single member, before they have the opportunity to actually utilize the studio 24/7, have to come in. And I always say, even though you might be an experienced Pilates user, you're not an App Pilates user. So you haven't experienced an App Pilates class before. So everyone that comes on board, we show them how to register. We do that one-on-one with them. We go through all of that back-end data to find out as much as we can about them. And we do that introductory onboarding session where they actually get to, use the reformer, use the tech, use the screens, find out if they like it. And there are some people that come in that might be very broken, that we go, you know what, you're better off at a physio doing one-on-one for a period of time. And then once the physio thinks that you're ready to come, then come into our system. And we're finding we're working really heavily with allied health, because they've not had anyone to send people to until now. A lot of times with face-to-face, again, I shouldn't say throw, but for someone that's coming off an injury to then move into a very generic, 6 o'clock intermediate class isn't helpful. They need something that's that next step. So now they can come to us and do a very specific knee rehab or back rehab or post-pregnancy program that they can do in their own time, that's still run by highly qualified instructors, come during staffed hours. So over 80% of our members come during staffed hours. So yes, we're 24/7, but still 80% of our members choose to come when an instructor is there. And those that do come outside of instructed hours are usually those that are really quite experienced. They're used to the model. They're very comfortable in the space, and they've spent time within the system. So it's not as if we just throw people in and just go, you'll be right. We do assist them, help them, onboard them first.
Yep. And I think as you were chatting too, like just touching on, if you've got an injury, I guess if in a traditional model where you just go to like a generic class with, 16 other people, there is that concern of the variability of like the instructor in terms of, well, how experienced are they in this particular, how long have they been training for? Do they actually know how to navigate this? I know, you don't want to make your injury worse. And so to kind of turn up and, maybe it's a younger instructor that maybe hasn't had experience around knee injuries or back injuries or, postpartum, there are those concerns that you might have. But I guess all of that variability disappears with this model as well.
And as the member element as well, the member doesn't want to stand out. The member doesn't want to put up their hand and go, oh, excuse me, I can't do that. They'll push through. And so what you'll find is people get injured because they just don't want to embarrass themselves, or they don't want to be attention drawn to them. And that's not ideal.
Yeah. I was originally thinking when we were chatting, earlier today, and also when I was chatting with Russell, was, obviously you guys have so many key points of difference to the business model. And initially I was like, oh, maybe it's that 24/7 flexibility is like the key point of difference, or the key thing that kind of, becomes your competitive advantage. But it sounds like it's actually the platform and the app and the technology, or what would you say is your competitive advantage, do you think?
Look, I think initially when we started, it was the 24/7, because that was, people were like, what do you mean you're 24/7? It completely messed with people, and the traditionalists in the Pilates world did not like it whatsoever, because the presumption was, well, this is dangerous. This is unstaffed. People are going to be, left doing, things that they shouldn't be doing. Those things are 100% addressed. For example, I've owned 24/7 gyms for over 20 years, and trust me, I feel I sleep way better at night. owning a 24/7 reformer Pilates studio than I did knowing people were on treadmills and under bench presses at 3 a.m. So it fascinates me that people all of a sudden are concerned with 24/7 reformer Pilates. Um, our classes are recorded with safety at the forefront. So one of the things we do say to our instructors, and I know this seems simplified, but we say, are you comfortable with a person doing this exercise at 2 o'clock in the morning on a hard floor unsupervised? And it's amazing how many times they go, you know what, I'm going to modify that exercise. So we look, and the repertoire in the platform is huge. There's so much variety you can do on a reformer carriage, but you can also it's an incredibly safe piece of equipment. And as I said before, we've got specialist instructors, and we, based on the information we gain from the member, we can actually really dial down into what's appropriate for them to do. So the safety aspect, the 24/7 aspect, that was, that was, I guess, a point of difference at the start. Now there's others that exist, and I'm watching them, a lot of them make the mistakes that we did way back when we first initially started. And I guess the key to it all is providing people with customer service, community, the same old, same old. It doesn't change whether it was 20 years ago or today. People want customer service. Give them more than they expect. Always give more value than people think they're going to get, and it'll come back. We're really affordable. So we are per week what a lot of studios are almost per session. So our studios on average are between $40 and $50 a week, unlimited classes, which no lock-in contract. You can cancel at any time. You can pause your membership. So that's incredibly appealing. The other thing too is just the fact that people can come into these. I don't know if you've seen our studios at all in our social media, but we are quite boutique. They are beautiful, beautiful. And one of the briefs that we've always had to do, they have to look good, smell good, feel good. So the lighting is a certain way, they smell a certain way, and people just come into our spaces just to be in the space. I have one lady that comes in just to use the massage chair. Love being in here. So she just loves being in the environment. So the fact that people just love hanging out with us is huge. So our point of difference, yes, it's 24/7, but it's all the other stuff that goes with it. And we use tech. Our tech is phenomenal. It's so cool what it actually does. Now, everything from our security system to our actual screens themselves, the platform is just next level. And all of our cameras, all of our booking systems, we just do all sorts of fun tech all the time. And I'm looking at things all the time that we can, that would be great for our members. The other thing too that we engage in heavily is, as I said, community events, but challenges and activities and programs and things like that with our members, which is great.
Yeah, so it's creating that sense of community. Even if someone does kind of turn up and they've got their headphones on, they're doing it on their own, there is still that sense of community because you are involved in like a monthly challenge or a quarterly challenge or something, which is fantastic.
And teaching our staff to read the room too, to know when, someone just is happy to come in and just do their thing, or when others really want to be part of that community. So it's an interesting balance, and every studio's, behaves slightly differently.
Yeah. Yeah, it really sounds like there's such a shift in the power dynamic of, instructor versus member, and that it really is kind of really enabling the customers. But I kind of want to chat a little bit about the franchises as well, because obviously you've spoken about like the square footage of this retail space is smaller, which, lower rent. But then you've also said, the general memberships are a little bit cheaper. So what does that look like return on investment wise for potential franchisees, and what that experience looks like for them as well?
Yeah. So I guess again, that's where our, strength in our growth is coming from. So we've actually now got Multisight franchise owners who we've got some that are opening their third studio because they've realized, wow, I can do this. And it's not as expensive as other studios to open because the footprint is smaller. You can open because our footprint's smaller, it actually also opens up to where you can open these studios. So you don't have to go. A lot of big fitness franchises are often in industrial areas because you've got car parking issues, you've got, scale of size of just basically the footprint that you've got to have. We can open in retail areas, which is great. So your foot traffic's great, your marketing visibility is fantastic. All of those things to open an App Pilates. So to actually come on board, I can tell you the numbers. It's $198,000, and that is everything from your systems and operations, your equipment, your marketing, an onboarding process. So we do an 8-week marketing campaign. You will open with in excess of 100 members. They're opening closer now with closer to 200 plus members, but we guarantee that you'll open with 100. So all of our studios open cash flow positive from the day they open. So that's a huge component. The thing we're giving back to our franchise owners is, I always say they've got a couple of things in common. We've got franchise owners that are 23 and into their 60s, some that are professionals from lawyers, teachers. We've got some that are new graduates, some that are dancers and Pilates, all sorts of walks of life, new mums, young families, single people. But they all have the same thing in common. They want a work-life balance back, and they want to do something purposeful. And so they are probably the two biggest things that we find, and they're the things that we focus on with our franchise owners, and we're finding that that's what we're providing them. So do they have to work and hard on that? Absolutely. There's no such thing as a set and forget business, especially when it comes to humans. But you've got to know your systems and operations well and have great staff. So that could be you. You might be the number one staff member. We've got people that don't work in their studio, but they manage their studios really well, and they manage their staff really well. The staff are the number one asset, whether that be yourself or whether that be, when I say yourself as the franchisee. But what they love is they can actually have control over their income and control over, I guess, their destiny and the time they spend with their family. Their families can be involved, all of those things. Lots of young mums love these businesses. We've got probably the biggest demographic we have are couples in their 30s with a young family, are probably the biggest demographic. So it really is working for them, and we've got to make sure it works for them. But that, I guess, return on investment is really important that we have that. We're finding that that's happening within 12 to 18 months at a stretch, which is crazy. And the reason we do that is because our footprint is smaller. Our human resource need is smaller because of our reliance on tech. And we know our expenses. So we provide each of our studio owners with basically a spreadsheet where we can actually put all of the controlled expenses that we know. Then they can put their variable expenses, things like membership numbers, membership prices, their fixed costs of their particular studio, their rent, their outgoings, all of their insurance, all of those things that they know the costs of. And then we can get a very, very accurate understanding as to what their break even is, as to what it looks like at 100 members, 150 members, 250 members. And so it gives them a lot of comfort in, I guess, the clarity that they have before they even open. But our systems, our onboarding is incredible. So I guess the strength of our business is not just, the overall, it's about the actual franchise partner itself. So we have a 13-week onboarding system that we do, and it's incredibly, again, tech-driven. It's very user-friendly. It's automated. So things they put in, they can actually construct their entire studio virtually as they pick their paint colors, they pick their reformers, they pick everything out, and it actually sets up their studio. But at the same time, they're doing the ordering process. At the same time, they're submitting their approvals to us. At the same time, they're triggering the next thing that they actually get released in their training. So all their CRM training and onboarding, their instructor training and onboarding. So their staff and the franchisee comes down to head office, and we do pre-training before that. Again, very automated, gamified, really interesting and fun, but they come down to head office as well. So We make sure that we try and provide the franchise owner with everything they're going to need for success.
Yeah, and it's, because there is a lot of conversation around, like, so many businesses open every year, because the flexibility, or I guess like the general approach that people have around running their own business is flexibility. It's like more time to spend with family or friends or whatever. Work-life balance is a huge thing. I think the one thing that commonly I hear that business owners kind of forget about is operating costs, the setup costs, the actual like running of the, rent, insurance, whatever kind of might be involved in actually running the business stuff. Everyone gets really excited about the idea and selling the idea, but it's the back end, I always call it like the boring stuff that people forget about. And it is, okay, cool, I've got an idea. Maybe I've nailed all the business stuff. Now I actually have to try and make money in this business, and it has to be cash, I have to be seeing revenue and cash flow, and that's the stuff that I think really wigs people out. And it's something that without mentoring, coaching, support, is really tough, is really, really difficult. And it's one of like the core reasons that businesses, it's like 60% of businesses don't make it past 5 years. Yeah.
They get burnout. So when people say why, people go, why should someone go with you rather than actually, open their own independent 24/7 and use a generic platform out there? You just answered it. So these are, Pilates and fitness, and I can say it because I've worked in it for 30 years. It's a very ego-driven industry. So we love the idea of owning a Pilates studio. We love the idea of, wow, look at my new studio. Look how beautiful it is. And I love the fact that, I've produced this beautiful space. So we're so driven about creating the space, opening the space, the opening day, my launch day, my launch week. That's great. But what does it look like in 12 months' time? What does it look like in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time? That's what's important. How are you going to keep those 100 members, 200 members? Because trust me, humans are humans. And no one stays motivated forever. And there is a thing called churn in the fitness industry, which is amount of members in compared to amount of members out. And you've got to make sure that number stays less than 10% or your business will fail. So what are your strategies to do that? What are your strategies during winter when everyone goes, it's too cold, I don't want to go out, I just want to stay rugged up, I'll join again in winter. Your bills keep coming during that time. You've got to have strategies for that. And that's where we come into play. That's what we do really, really well. We've been doing this for 30 years and we know what works. Yes, we can create beautiful spaces and we can help you create a beautiful space. That's just one aspect of it. But what we do really well is keep your business flourishing. And that's so important if you're going to stay in business. I get people coming to me all the time and go, oh, I've got this idea. I'm going to open a new Pilates studio. I go, great. What's different? I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I go, so what's your catch? What's different? Why people are going to come to you and not the 400 Pilates studios that are in your area? And they go, oh, but ours is going to be more beautiful. It's like, right. So if you're relying on the fact that your walls are a different color, or that you've named it, X instead of Y, or that your branding's a little bit prettier, or that your reformers are cream instead of black, you're on a pathway to the bottom. You've got to find, what are you doing that's different to all your competition? And I guess that's where we worked incredibly hard for you. When you said, why did you stay quiet for so long? We stayed quiet because we were perfecting our differences, and we were perfecting the things that were our superpowers and actually made it incredibly difficult for people to chase us. And so if you're opening, my advice to people, if you're going to open a studio, figure out what it is that's going to make you stand out, what it is that's different, and what it is that's going to help you maintain members in the long run.
Yeah. And I guess that's replicable across any industry, really, is like a lot of, again, like people get caught up in the visual aesthetic, which, design helps to sell. But at the end of the day, people aren't going to pay for something just because it looks prettier. If it costs an extra $100 a month or $120 a month or whatever it might look like, or they might initially, but unless it's incredible, it's backed up by incredible service or like an amazing business model, or a real key point of difference, that's when you do start to see that churn and it doesn't necessarily stick around. So I think the retention strategy, I think a lot of people focus quite a lot of their initial marketing on acquisition and getting as much in. But ultimately, retention is kind of the biggest winner, because if you can maintain someone, it doesn't matter if that acquisition cost is a little bit higher. If they stick around for 12 months as opposed to 3 months, because you have an incredible business model and you're servicing your clients really well, then that acquisition cost totally drops and they end up becoming like a brand ambassador or a referral partner as well, which is critical for any kind of business. Yeah. So I guess, beyond Pilates, you guys really have identified a pretty massive shift in, consumer demand for flexibility, for convenience. You guys have really nailed it. But how do you kind of anticipate this, customer expectation evolving over the coming years?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're making sure we do really well, as I keep saying, I always say we're a tech company in activewear. That's yeah. So as I said before, we really embrace how do we use, I guess, tech as much as we can to enhance the customer experience. So that's incredibly important for us. Not take away from it, not replace the human element. The number one reason people stay at studios, gyms, any form of service industry is the staff, is the experience they have with the staff, how they feel in that business. Everyone thinks about, it's about we're cheaper. I've got to do the cheapest membership offering. I've got to make sure that my membership offering is better than theirs. I've got to undercut. It's not about the price. It's not about, as I said, how pretty your walls are. They're important, but the number one thing is what's the experience that they're getting. So that's incredibly important, and never lose focus on that. So that's something we're always aware of. And I think the mistake people will make if they're trying to embrace this type of model, this full service model, anytime, any place type situation, they can't forget about the customer service element of it. So that's really important. And the other thing too for us, it's about making sure that our platform is just crazier than anything else that's out there. So the fact that other platforms that are out there, and there are some good platforms, don't get me wrong, there are some really great ones, are collections of classes or collections of programs. So what we're trying to do is not just have collections and more classes or more and more aspects on this platform. What we want is that platform to actually do things for you. So we've got things on there that the user can actually generate content. The user can actually start to put classes together themselves, and they're actually saved. Other people can actually access those classes as well. So it becomes a network where people can actually see what other people are doing, where people can get involved in other people's classes. I won't get into how that happens. That's something that's proprietary at the moment, and we're working through that, but it's pretty cool. It will, as I said before, it will also guide people, help people, which ultimately also helps the instructor on the floor. So they can actually, help people use the platform more effectively and guide them through so that they get a really personalized experience. So making sure that we're constantly evolving that is huge, huge for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what would be, looking into the future, what would be kind of like one core piece of advice or like a principle? Obviously, like you said, like you guys have been in the industry, in the fitness industry, but then also in like this kind of really quickly, rapidly evolving space for quite a while now. You've got so much experience and so much knowledge. Like what would be like an essential, like business principle for someone that's, looking to innovate, looking to scale, looking to use technology for their business to really adapt, and I guess become like a key point of difference?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is I'd identify it. So is it a key point of difference? As I said, aesthetics isn't a key point of difference just because something looks different or it's called a different name. So come up with what that key point of difference, and you nailed it also. How do you scale it? So if you might be completely comfortable with having one or two or three studios, which is fine, or sites or gyms or whatever it is that you're wanting to do. But if you're wanting to scale on a mass amount, when I say mass, so you're looking 10, 20, 30, you've got to have the systems and operations first before you do that. So make sure that you know how to deal with, we've got tens of thousands of members, you can imagine, across our network that have to access classes and all be happy, and hundreds of staff. How do you service all of those? How do you make sure that everyone's getting the quality that they need? And what they're getting in Toowoomba is the same as they're getting in South Melbourne. So having great systems and operations and taking time to do that. Don't employ too heavily too quickly. Do as much as you can cost effectively from the start, and scale your staff when you need to. We ran lean, really lean. There was 3 of us in our business for probably, I want to say, until about April last year. So our head office has grown to 10. 10's a lot. So we've grown, and so that's, and our primary increases have been in operations. So being able to service our franchise owners in terms of everything they need to get their studio open, but also to franchise support. So we have staff that are there for when their studio opens, no matter what their question is, or we've got people to actually help support them in their studio. Sales, obviously, dealing with the amount, I said we've got over 200 inquiries a month that have come through for people interested in App Pilates studios. Obviously, we don't entertain all of them. And making sure that our training, so we have, our platform is so important to us. So we have a head of education and platform developer. So Maddie Beck, her experience is she's got over 10 years experience as a Pilates instructor, but she's also been a professional dancer. She's also a strength and conditioning coach. So she's a unicorn, and she's incredible. So our platform now has over 30 instructors from all around the world on it. So we've got someone just dedicated to that. So for us, it's all of those elements, making sure that we're continuously developing and staying on top of those elements, which is a huge job now, but we've now got the infrastructure to make sure we do that.
Well, thank you so much, Tara. I feel like we've learned so much about your business, but also, talking about like franchisees and that business model. And it was really interesting hearing about how you guys started regionally and really have strategically developed this business in a way that is really, making waves and really disrupting the industry. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you having me on, and I've actually really enjoyed reliving sort of how we started and where it all came from. So no, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you want to hear more from us, you can get daily videos and podcasts on Rask's YouTube channel, or if you want to enroll in a free course on investing, property, business, money, you name it, you can join over 34,000 other students and enroll in a free course on the Rask website. Simply head to www.rask.com.au and follow the prompts. Thanks for watching this Rask podcast.